Hello, welcome to day 37. This is the week when we have started to tiptoe into meditation. We practiced a little bit of the brain relaxation meditation over the weekend, and we also watched Leo's video about how to meditate. So I'm going to start off our review today by talking a little bit about meditation. One thing I want to point out is that we are going to really tiptoe into meditation. What we're really trying to get into is a daily meditation habit. However, if you want to, you can always meditate more than the amount that I assign. We're going to be starting with 5 minutes of meditation on most days. But if you want to do 10, 15, 30, an hour, feel free to do that. So what I will assign as I assign our meditation exercises is the minimum. So the request is that you do at least the meditation assignment as a minimum each day that it's assigned. If there's no meditation assigned, you could do one if you want, or you could skip it. But if it is assigned, do at least the minimum amount of minutes that I ask you to do. And if you want to do more, do more. I want to go over some of the things that we saw in Leo's video about how to meditate, just to kind of re-emphasize those points in our mind. One of the points that was made in the video is that meditation is going to help us learn to live from or abide in the peace group. I'm sure you remember the emotions that we learned from How to Master Your Emotions from that video with Leo. I think that was the name of the video. It's not important. It was the most recent emotion video that we watched, where Leo listed off all of the different groups of emotions. And of course, right now, we are practicing being the superconductor with a lot of the emotions that were listed in that video. One of the things that Leo said in that video was that the least resourceful group of emotions were the apathy group, which included things like laziness and depression. He also said that the most resourceful group of emotions, which I said I wouldn't even call these emotions, they're really more the flavor of your true self. But the most useful group was the peace group. And meditation helps us to abide in everyday life in that peace group. That's what we learn. Some of the emotions, as Leo called them, some of the emotions in the peace group are calm, coming from calmness, acceptance, being an acceptance of what is instead of judging what is, feeling whole or complete instead of feeling lacking. And when we feel like we are lacking, we really experience that in a couple of different ways. One way is we feel like we're not good enough, which can be experienced as unworthiness, guilt, or shame. Another way we experience that we're lacking is that we don't have what we need to be secure. So we experience that as worry. We experience that as fear. We experience that as a lot of people feel like, when's the next shoe going to drop, right? When's that next shoe going to drop? That all comes from not feeling complete. So when we're abiding in the peace group, when we're feeling calm, we're in acceptance, and we feel whole or complete, that's when we're going through life being in the world, but not of the world, because we're not reactionary. We're not trying to control or manipulate the world. We're able to just be centered in our true self with whatever seems to unfold in the world. So meditation helps us get to that. And this, of course, is a very important reason to meditate. But that's not all there is to meditation. Leo said that meditation helps to increase our creativity, which comes from your subconscious and bubbles up when you are peaceful and calm. Now, he used the word creativity, but what I would really say is that meditation helps you connect with and live from your intuition. Now, intuition is a very interesting thing because the intuition is actually connected to the whole. It's connected to consciousness. It's connected to our oneness. Scientists might say it's connected to the quantum field, but it's connected to that which knows everything. We don't need to know everything in our brains. The quantum field or the consciousness knows everything, and the intuition comes in and gives us our part, what we are to do now, from that knowledge of everything. And this does bubble up more and more through our calmness, through our inner peace, both as we meditate and throughout the day when we do meditate. So a really important reason for meditating is learning to connect with that intuition. So we have that to guide us instead of being dependent on our limited and somewhat crazy thinking mind. Leo said that meditation will give you the ability to observe yourself in situations without judgment and without being reactive. This is called mindfulness. And mindfulness is a really important skill. There are two primary ways of healing unwholesome subconscious thinking patterns. One is through meditation. And of course, people who heal these unwholesome subconscious thinking patterns through meditation tend to spend hours in meditation. You know, this is kind of the Buddhist way, but it's not the only way. Another way to heal these unwholesome subconscious thinking patterns is mindfulness. It's like living your life from the attitude of meditation. You know, in meditation, you are watching rather than reacting. In mindfulness, you're walking through your day, interacting with whatever you're interacting with, but you're interacting from watching instead of from reacting. And so, because you're living with a meditative state of mind, you're healing things just by going through your day. Your life becomes your dharma, or your life becomes your practice. In fact, I remember once that Holy Spirit told me that I would do everything that Buddha did during meditation, but I would do it through my daily life, right? My life is my practice. However, we still need that skill of being able to observe without judgment, without being reactive. And so meditation will help us to learn that skill. And then even if we're not meditating 6 hours a day, which I don't, we take that skill from the meditation and we bring it to our daily life. So we're still getting those healing benefits. Leo also said in meditation, and this is really important, you will melt away the ego and your sense of separation from the world. And really the idea that I am separate from everything else is the great illusion. That's just not true at all, and it's the great illusion. So meditation is going to help melt away that idea that I am separate from the world, from God, and from everything else. One thing about meditation, a lot of people, maybe even most people, especially when they begin to meditate, really feel that they're not any good at it, that it's a waste of time, and they might as well stop sitting here with their eyes closed doing nothing and do something else. I want to say that what's really important about meditation is that you do it regardless of whether you think you're good at it or not. meditation is something that has a way of teaching you how to meditate. Meditation teaches you how to meditate, which means if you stop meditating because you're not any good at it, you will never get good at it. Also, even if you do get, in your own perception, good at meditation, you may go through periods of time when the mind is very active, when the emotions are very turbulent, and you may not be meditating in the way that you judged as good, and then you could stop. If you're valuing certain meditations as good, and then you go through this period for weeks or months where the meditations are much more tumultuous than that. My mouth, tumultuous, oh, that's hard for me to say, much more turbulent than that. Even though you've been meditating for a while and you have a good meditation habit, you might quit then. The truth is, when you meditate, you're going to have all kinds of experiences. They're not all going to be peaceful and calm. Some of them are going to be turbulent. And again, we're learning how to just observe and not judge and not react to that. So the real key is not to judge your meditation ever, no matter what's happening. You obviously will give your best effort to your meditation, and I'm going to be teaching you meditation exercises so you'll have something to work on in your meditation. Like right now, you're working on relaxing the brain. That's the first meditation exercise we're working on. So you'll have a focus. But you don't want to judge how well or how poor you're doing. You just want to continue to try. You just want to get into the meditation habit. You just want to do it whenever it's assigned. You just want to do it for the minimum amount of time, regardless of how well or poorly you think you're doing. That's very important with meditation. Just do it. I think that's the Nike slogan, but that's the meditation slogan as well. In fact, there's a wonderful quote, I think it's Nisargadatta Maharaj, referring to meditation, that says the progress may be imperceptible to the practitioner, which means the one who is doing the meditation may have no idea at all or no hint at all about the progress they are making through meditation. And if you quit, of course, you cut that progress off at the knees. So don't judge your meditations, just do them. So over this 500 days, we are going to be stepping into meditation quite slowly. I will tell you that I had great resistance to meditation. It took me years from the time that I began to feel like meditation was important until I got into a meditation habit. So you're learning from someone who didn't want to meditate. And the advantage to that is I'm going to take you in very slowly, very gently. So that hopefully resistance won't be a huge problem for you. It will be so gradual. And I'm going to use different meditation exercises that were very helpful to me, a resistant meditator. And so since those exercises were very helpful to me, hopefully if you have great resistance, you'll also find these exercises to be very helpful to you. So again, we're going to tiptoe. We're going to do a little bit. And you can always do more if you want to do more. This week, the meditation that you'll be doing on the days that it's assigned is the brain relaxation meditation that you did over the weekend with the audio. Only this week you will do it without the audio. So you're just going to be taking 5 minutes to practice brain relaxation on your own. And there are a number of ways that you can do this. Some people, when they're relaxing the brain, they like to scan the brain in an organized way. And I sometimes do this myself. There are a few different ways that you could do this. One is you could imagine a scanner, right? Rings. And the scanner just starts at the top and just kind of scans down. And you pause at each of the different places. And once you get to the bottom, you can begin to scan back up again. right? And you just sit there and do that for 5 minutes. You just imagine this scanner, and in this scanner is just this relaxation energy. You just let it scan down. And I like to go even slower than I'm showing right now when I do it. I like to stay at this point for some time, really pay attention. And then when I feel like I'm complete there, shift down a little bit. And I can't go that slow now because I don't want to take a full 5 minutes, but stay and then shift, stay and then shift. Some people like to scan their brain more in a spiral type motion, right? So they'll stay with a portion maybe right here, relaxing this, and then they'll shift this way, and then they'll shift this way, and they just continue around very slowly in a spiral. Sometimes I like to let my attention just jump around. Like maybe I'll go here, and then I'll go here, and then I'll go here, right? Just whatever happens and give my attention to that. So there isn't a rule, I guess is the main point I'm making. There isn't a rule. You just want to make sure you spend 5 minutes at least focusing on relaxing the brain. That's the only thing you're asked to do. And you'll do that on the days that it's assigned this week. Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about, in this past week, we looked at NTI Matthew chapters 13 and 14. And I mentioned that NTI Matthew 13 is one of my favorite chapters. In fact, it is my favorite chapter in NTI Matthew. I want to share a few of the quotes from NTI Matthew chapter 13 and just share a little bit about why I love these quotes so much. One of the quotes says, "All that you do by your choice. To deny this is to deny who you are." Most people do live in reaction to the world. And what that means is, maybe I'll see something on the news that I judge as bad, and I'll get upset at the news, or I'll become fearful about what's going to happen next. Or maybe someone says something to me and I feel insulted, or I feel misunderstood and hurt. Things are going on out there in the world. And the position that most people are in is the position of reacting. What this quote really means is that's unnecessary. Without noticing it, even these reactions are being chosen. The desire to get afraid is there, and I'm grabbing onto that desire. Or the desire to get angry is there, and I'm grabbing onto that desire. And this quote is pointing out that I don't need to do this. I have the power of choice. That is my power. I have the power of choice, and I can exercise that power and therefore live from the peace group, from calm, from acceptance, from whole. And to deny that I can do that, to say, oh, no, 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 the world is this very real thing, and I'm this little bitty person in the world, and I am the victim of the world I see. To say that is to deny who I am. The second quote that I've selected is, "No one can keep you from yourself, your capital S self, but yourself, your little s self," which is often called the ego, which really we could say is the thinking in the mind. That same thinking that might talk me into quit meditating because I'm not any good at it. That's the small s self. That's the obstacle. That's what holds me back from realizing my truth. So it's important to know what the obstacle is, because most people believe their thinking. Most people believe, oh, I don't want to do this reading today. I'm just going to quit. Or I don't want to do these 500 days. 37 days was enough. I'm going to quit, right? And that's the obstacle. That thinking is what keeps you from realizing your true self. So being aware that the false self-thinking or the little self-thinking is the obstacle to true self-realization can help us to see the thinking. I see that thought, I don't want to meditate today, but I'm going to meditate anyway, because that thought is coming from the obstacle. And what I really want is to realize my true self. The next quote, the choice you make will seem to be made many times in complete sincerity and truth of heart. And then you will seem to slip and forget the choice you made. Do not let this distress you. Simply make the choice again. Most people have no idea how many of their choices are coming from the subconscious. In fact, again, sometimes when you're reacting, like if you're being hurt at something that someone said, you don't even realize that is a choice. And it is a choice, and it's coming from the subconscious. The subconscious is very, very resistant to change. And it's resistant to change for a good reason. Some of the things that are stored in the subconscious are how to walk, how to drive, how to ride a bike, how to speak this language, right? And it's good that those things are resistant to change, because we don't want to forget how to walk or how to drive a car, right? But there's also a lot of very unwholesome, unhelpful thinking patterns that are stored in the subconscious. And we live from them, it appears automatically, although, as I've mentioned, there is choice there. And they are very resistant to change. So because the subconscious is resistant to change, that means there'll be a lot of days when you're going to start making decisions based on the guidance provided in 500 days, and then you're going to slip. You're going to decide, for example, that today I'm going to be mindful. I'm going to watch when I get upset. I'm not going to be reactionary. And the next thing you know, you're reacting to somebody before you saw it coming. Because this is just the natural effect of the subconscious being resistant to change, you don't want to slip into judging yourself as a failure. Instead, as this says, do not let this distress you. Simply make the choice again. You say, oh, I see I reacted there, but I don't need to continue this reaction. You know, I snapped. I do not need to turn this into a 30-minute, monologue of me telling this person what for. I can catch myself now and shift back into mindfulness. So again, the choice you make will seem to be made many times in complete sincerity and truth of heart. And then you will seem to slip and forget the choice you made. Do not let this distress you. Simply make the choice again. Here's the next quote. Do not worry that you do not tend to your choice enough. For if you tend to your choice every time you remember, that is enough. For in the tending of your choice, the tending itself will extend until you are tending to your choice in every moment as you desire. What that means is in the moments when you don't remember to be mindful, you can't be mindful. You can only be mindful when you remember to be mindful. Don't beat yourself up for that. But here's what you want to watch. When the memory arises to be mindful, or the memory arises to say the sentence that we're saying today in NTI, you want to do it right then. You know, sometimes, for example, if we're saying today, the Spirit of God is one, sometimes the thought will arise to say that, the Spirit of God is one. But then there'll be another thought, which is coming from the small self, our obstacle, which will say, well, after I finish this email, I'll pause and do that. And if we listen to that, then we tend to forget, and it ends up not being said. So when the prompt arises to be mindful now, or the prompt arises to take a pause and say this sentence now, we want to do it now, right? Don't let the obstacle come in and cause us to delay. If we do it when we remember, when we are guided to remember to, right? When the prompt comes into the mind, if we do it then that remembering will start to come more often. We're actually tapping into our spiritual intuition by following its instructions. So when it reminds me to be mindful, if I become mindful in that moment, I will start being reminded to be mindful more, and I will start living from mindfulness more. But if I say, okay, after I finish this email, or, after I, finish whatever, right? And we don't, we're not tapping into it. If we don't listen to it when it arises, we're repressing it. And as a result, we're kind of pushing it back out of our awareness, and we're not going to see that progress. We're not going to see that improvement. So right now, you might not be remembering a lot, but do not worry that you do not tend to your choice enough. For if you tend to your choice every time you remember, that is enough. For the tending of your choice, the will extend until you are, let me read that again. In the tending of your choice, by listening to that spiritual intuition when it's reminding you, in the tending of your choice, the tending itself will extend until you are tending to your choice in every moment as you desire. The next quote from NTI Matthew chapter 13. You must trust me above all that you think and hear and see. You must put me above yourself and your world. And you do this by your choice, by selecting the thoughts you will believe and the thoughts you will let go. So as we move forward in the 500 days, there's going to be a lot of guidance. And all of the guidance is inspired. I mean that literally. It came from spiritual intuition. And I'm as excited to go through these 500 days with you as I am for you to go through it on your own. But I know that as we go through these 500 days, again, that little self is going to attempt to pop up as an obstacle. For example, maybe we'll be working on one day noticing that every time I'm upset, it's because I've judged, that my judgment is the cause of my upset. And that's the mindful practice for the day. But the little self may come in and say, bull, that's not why we're upset. We're upset because he blah, 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 or she yada, 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 whatever. At that point, we have to make a choice. What am I going to listen to? Am I going to listen to the guidance that I was given through the 500 days course to look and see what my judgment was and to notice that it's really my judgment that's upsetting me? Or am I going to believe that little obstacle self that's saying, that's not why you're upset. You're upset because this should not have happened. And sometimes the world, all of our friends, all of our coworkers are going to agree that should not have happened. And so we have to trust the guidance in the 500 days course and in NTI more than our friends, more than our coworkers, more than the world, more than the thoughts that come from our little s obstacle self. So you must trust me, Holy Spirit. You must trust me above all that you think and hear and see. You must put me above yourself, that little obstacle self, and your world. And you do this by your choice, by selecting the thoughts you will believe and the thoughts you will let go. The next quote really just ties in with this. It was an italics sentence in the center of the page in NTI Matthew 13. Where will you put your faith? I mean, that's really the question we need to ask all the time. Am I going to put my faith with these thoughts, this little obstacle self? Am I going to put my faith with what I've always been taught? Am I going to put my faith with what my friends are saying? Or am I going to put my faith with the guidance in the 500 days program? This is a decision we'll have to make over and over and over again. And my final quote from NTI Matthew chapter 13. I offer more than comfort within a world of fear. I offer the peace and knowing of God. What can happen for probably most of us is that we can become comfortable in our world as it is, especially in the United States of America, Canada, Europe, Australia. Our countries are really um, wealthy countries, regardless of my apparent individual position, whether I judge myself as poor or not. Our countries are wealthy countries. Even our poor are often much better off than some of the people that you see, that are in other countries. And as a result of that, as a result of our material world, we can become pretty comfortable. We aren't always as motivated towards awakening as we would be if there was more suffering in our life. There's no reason, in my humble opinion, to ask suffering to come to push me into awakening. And in fact, if I pay attention, I'll notice there is at least some low-level suffering here now. Maybe I have money, but there's some fears about losing the money. Like, what if the stock market crashes or the real estate market drops again? Or there may just be worries about, what's going to go wrong with the house next. It's going to have to be fixed. And maybe I don't even see it as a financial problem. It's just a hassle. And I just don't like the hassle. Or maybe I'm concerned that my spouse or my partner is not interested in me as much anymore, or having an affair. Or maybe I worry about my adult children and what they're getting involved in. Even if I'm comfortable, if I pay attention, I'm not at peace. I'm not feeling whole, content, calm. There's at least this low level suffering. Maybe it's stress at work that's going on all of the time. So that's what this sentence is referring to. I offer more than comfort within a world of fear. Where you really aren't comfortable. You think you're comfortable, but there's all these things that could go wrong or are going wrong, and you're trying to manage everything, and you're worrying about things, and it's really a rocky place, that you're at right now. So I offer more than comfort within a world of fear. I offer the peace and knowing of God. Right? That's the firm foundation, the peace and knowing of God. So that's what we want to keep in mind if we start feeling so comfortable that we aren't engaging in our spiritual practice. We want to remember that we're being offered more than comfort in a world of fear, and be motivated to continue with our practice. I also wrote down one quote from NTI Matthew chapter 14. Put your fear aside, and you will know miracles that will increase your faith. In my spiritual path, there are times when I was guided to do something that was different than what the Regina personality would do. And of course, the little obstacle self had all kinds of thoughts about why that shouldn't be done and what could go wrong if I follow that guidance, et cetera, et cetera. That's when this sentence became really important. Put your fear aside, and you will know miracles that will increase your faith. What I found every time was if I put aside the fears that came from the obstacle self, and I trusted the guidance, which I knew was guidance, and I took those steps anyway, something that I never imagined occurred to show me I was on the right path. And so by following guidance and by experiencing these miracles, I gained confidence in following guidance. And so that's what this is saying. If you know you've received guidance, put the obstacle self fear aside, follow the guidance and trust, and you will learn from your own experience that you're following the right voice. One other thing I want to talk about, I'll try to do it quickly before I let you go today. You watched the little 4-minute Mind the Bump video in the last week. And I just want to share 4 things from that video, 3 things from that video. First, the video said, it is the focus of our awareness which strengthens and creates the brain networks or weakens them and causes them to be lost entirely. That means that if I'm focusing attention on thoughts that say I am not good enough, or if I'm focusing attention on worry that something's going to go wrong, etc., I am strengthening those brain networks. If I learn to shift my attention from that type of thinking and focus instead, for example, on the thought that we're focusing on in NTI today, or the spiritual practice that we're practicing in the 500 days today, then what's going to happen is I'm going to begin to weaken those other unhelpful, unwholesome networks in the brain, and I'll strengthen the wholesome, helpful networks in the brain. So it's important to know that we are actually reprogramming our brain as we go through these practices. It also said in Mind the Bump, if we practice being calm, clear, and focused, we can develop those networks in the brain. Again, we're practicing that during meditation, but we're also going to be practicing that in our daily life. Our daily life is our primary dharma, our primary practice. So we're practicing being calm, being the observer, being non-reactive. And we do that through our daily exercises, especially as we become more advanced. So remember, we're actually reforming the brain. These practices are so important. I told you in the very beginning, it's kind of like the Karate Kid. You know, you may not think it's that important to say 6 times a day, the Spirit of God is one, or whatever the assignment is. But it's much more important than you realize because of the work that we're doing to reprogram the brain. So my request is that you trust the exercises that have been given to us in the 500 days. Follow the exercises to the absolute best of your ability. And that's where the results are going to come from. Also from the video, mindfulness is the capacity to direct our awareness in a certain way. It's choosing our emotions and thoughts, which helps to reshape our brain. This fits back with what we read in NTI Matthew chapter 13 that said, all that you do by your choice. To deny this is to deny who you are. Even though our reactions right now appear to be coming from the subconscious, they appear to be automatic, we appear not to have a choice, none of that is true. What's actually happening is you're making choices very, very quickly. When something arises from the subconscious, for example, the idea to feel hurt when someone, quote, insults you, when that idea rises, it rises very quickly, you grab onto it very quickly, and then you feel hurt. It didn't happen in the subconscious. It came out of the subconscious, it came from the subconscious, and you selected it, and then you reacted in that way. What we're going to learn through mindfulness is when these ideas rise up from the subconscious, we're going to learn to see them and then not choose them, make a different choice. That's what's going to happen through these 500 days. So, and as we do that, our brain is going to be reprogrammed. So some of these things will literally be eliminated from the subconscious. Pretty soon they won't even rise up anymore. That's what we call healing, right? That's you've healed the mind, healed the subconscious. So again, these practices are very, very important. So trust the practices, go through the practices. Remember, there's a lot going on that you aren't aware of. Back to the Nisargadatta quote, which was about meditation, but this applies to mindfulness too, is that the progress may be imperceptible to the practitioner. So what the practitioner needs to do is to trust and continue with the progress, with the practices, because the progress is happening in the subconscious, which is why you might not be aware of how much healing is actually going on. The last thing I want to do today is emphasize that you stick with these exercises that are being assigned on most days, which is looking at a particular emotion and practicing being the superconductor with those emotions. Like everything else in this program, those exercises are very, very important. Not only are you learning to become the superconductor, which is a very important skill, and you're going to use that in your daily life, but you are also learning to recognize how you feel. So even though right now you may sometimes be having to go back in your memory, in your brain, and recall when you felt a certain way, that practice in the brain is preparing you to respond with the superconductor when these same emotions arise in your daily life. So back to the Karate Kid, these practices are very important. So make sure when you're assigned to set down, remember a time from the past when you felt a certain way, such as annoyed, um, disgusted, or whatever it is asking for that day. Set back, recall a time, remember what you can about it. It may even come up in a very strong way if it's still somewhat raw, unhealed, and then be the superconductor with that. Do the best with those exercises as you can, just like everything else. They're really very important. So I'm going to let you go, and I'll see you again next week. Enjoy your week with NTI.